So there are a couple of things, worth sharing. One is that the number of degrees or experience that a therapist has are not necessarily an indication of whether they're good or not. Like any other field, you can have a doctor who has so many degrees up on their wall. Whether they're ethical or not, again, as human beings, and like any other profession, I do encourage people to learn about different therapeutics that are out there. But it remains, an area that is very difficult to measure. It's not like going to a doctor. I mean, there are areas within medicine, like if you fall down and break one of your bones, you can get an X-ray. But there are areas in medicine which are very difficult to know what's going on. And same thing with therapy. Also, why a certain therapeutic approach gets more funding, why it's more popular, is also not an indication of whether that's better for you than others. Because certain therapeutic approaches, say take cognitive behavioral, as opposed to a child and family center, a center like I worked with, for adults sexually abused in childhood. The center I worked with, it wasn't cognitive behavior because there's a recognition that the issues that we're going to be presented with are going to be very complex and long term. And when applying to funding from the government, there was an understanding that, yes, when it comes to sexual abuse, we don't expect people to be well within 6 sessions. And it remains for every person to judge themselves and judge what they need, or go to therapy for a while and then not go to therapy for a while, or alternative therapies. It's really wide open. That's why I'm being very cautious about sharing my experiences in such a way that it's not preachy. Although personally I am committed to this work, and I was just about to say I love it. I mean, a lot of it hurts. But I do love the principle of being present to myself and trying to be loving towards myself. And it's not coming from an ideological place. It's coming from a recognition that I'm a mammal, I'm a social animal, and there are developmental stages to how mammals grow up and how we do need love and presence. And there is research out there about orphanages where the babies don't get much contact and what happens to them, and they end up being disturbed. There is a part of me that believes that love is the answer to everything in this universe. But I've learned the hard way that if I am to accept my biology as an animal, viciousness and territoriality and tribalism is also part of who we are, and there is a military industry there, and the historical dynamics of humanity, of us fighting each other and fighting ourselves, is just there. I don't have answers. All I have is trying. Yeah, I think that's enough for now.